I'm back after a long time, not by accident, but because some journeys take longer when the wounds are real. Welcome to Honeybee. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell. Real stories of love, lies, and betrayal, where every truth stings. Let's begin. I have a right to be happy, even if it causes you pain. That was what my wife said to me, looking straight into my eyes after 31 years of marriage. In a single sentence, she erased more than 3 decades of shared history. We had built a life together. We had raised a daughter. And just like that, it was over. My name is Logan. And to understand how we reached that moment, I need to take you back to where everything started. When I was 20 years old, I made it through all 4 years of high school without ever having a girlfriend. Not because I didn't care about girls, but because I was painfully shy. I was a quiet kid who sat in the back of the classroom, convinced that if I ever worked up the courage to ask a girl out, she'd laugh at me, or worse, say yes out of pity. So instead of taking risks, I disappeared into my books. I told myself that someday, later on, I'd figure out relationships. That plan felt safe, and I was comfortable with it. I first noticed a woman who would become my wife when I was in university. It took me 6 full weeks just to gather the nerve to talk to her. When I finally did, she smiled, engaged in the conversation, and made me feel welcome. I walked away from that interaction, feeling like I had won something truly important. The 2 years that followed were the happiest years of my early adulthood. Christina and I grew close in a way I had never experienced before. She was my first real kiss, my first intimate relationship, the first person I ever told, "I love you," to, and meant it completely. Christina had more experience than I did. She had dated in high school, had past relationships, and understood romance and intimacy in ways I was only beginning to learn. But she was patient. She guided me gently through everything without ever making me feel inadequate. I took that patience as love, as evidence that she cared enough to meet me where I was instead of expecting me to already be someone else. We were young, deeply in love, and convinced that wanting something badly enough was all it took to make it last. I proposed to Christina, and when she said yes, I decided she was the only woman I would ever want. I promised myself that I would spend my entire life proving I deserved her choice. We married a few years after graduation. The ceremony was small and simple, and I didn't care about that at all. My innocence was genuine. I wasn't making vows I didn't intend to keep. I truly believed that love meant giving your entire future to another person. Our first home was a tiny 1-bedroom apartment. Those early years were filled with arguments. We fought about money, because there never seemed to be enough of it. Every unexpected expense felt like an emergency. We argued about dishes, laundry, and who forgot to pay the electric bill. But we also laughed. We learned adulthood together, figuring out taxes, insurance, and all the ordinary responsibilities no one prepares you for. I thought the struggles were just growing pains, the natural friction that comes from learning how to share a life. Every hardship felt worth it because at the end of each day, I came home to her. 2 years into our marriage, I walked into our kitchen one morning and found Christina sitting at the small table, holding a pregnancy test. She looked up and told me we were going to have a baby. The next 9 months were a mix of excitement and fear. We read parenting books, debated philosophies, and argued over which crib to buy. We went back and forth on baby names for weeks before settling on Amber for a girl and Michael for a boy. I watched Christina's body change as the pregnancy progressed. I saw her grow tired and uncomfortable, and more beautiful to me than ever. Watching her prepare to become a mother made me fall in love with her all over again. Amber was born after one of the longest nights of my life at the hospital. When I finally held my daughter in my arms, something inside me changed forever. Every cliche about fatherhood suddenly made perfect sense. Looking at her tiny fingers and scrunched-up face, I understood what it meant to love someone so completely that you would give your life for them without hesitation. I looked at Christina, exhausted, sweaty, and felt certain that our family was whole. What followed were the most difficult years of our marriage up to that point, though I didn't recognize it then. We became working parents with a newborn, juggling daycare schedules, sick days, and a constant exhaustion that never fully went away. Conversations turned into negotiations that felt like battles. We argued over whose meeting mattered more when Amber got sick, whose career could afford to take the hit when daycare closed unexpectedly. We both felt like we were failing, at work, at parenting, at being spouses. During those years, I climbed the corporate ladder. I became a senior accountant, then a manager. The pay improved, but so did the hours and the stress. There were months when our conversations were reduced to logistics, pickups, appointments, grocery lists. Intimacy became rare. We fell asleep in the same bed without touching, too exhausted to reach for one another. Still, I pushed forward. To me, that was marriage. As Amber grew older, things slowly became easier. The change was so gradual, I barely noticed it. By the time she reached middle school, we finally had room to breathe. I kept pushing at work and eventually made partner, which came with more money and more responsibility. We bought a larger house in a nicer neighborhood. Christina became a curriculum coordinator and earned more, though she often complained about bureaucracy and pointless meetings. But we were stable, comfortable, no longer struggling. I truly believe this was the goal of marriage. That passion fades and transforms into partnership. That quiet stability is a reward for years of effort. I found comfort in it. I didn't realize Christina felt trapped by it. I watched Amber grow into a confident young woman and felt proud of every milestone. I believed our marriage looked exactly as it should after 2 decades. I didn't see that what I call stability, Christina experienced as confinement. When Amber left for university, I expected an adjustment period. Everyone warned us about the empty nest. Friends encouraged us to reconnect, to rediscover each other now that parenting took less of our energy. We tried. We planned date nights. We went on a cruise for our 25th anniversary. I believed it was working. Christina seemed engaged, present, happy. What I failed to notice were the signs that something fundamental had shifted. I'm an accountant. My career is built on spotting patterns and inconsistencies. Yet I failed to read the balance sheet of my own marriage. I focus on assets, our years together, our home, our daughter, and ignored the mounting liabilities. I never asked Christina if she was happy, because I assumed happiness looked like what we had. I didn't consider that stability might feel like stagnation to someone craving more. I never imagined she was planning an exit while holding my hand and telling me we had done well. Amber married shortly after turning 23. That day remains both one of the happiest moments of my life and the calm before everything collapsed. I believe we had reached the summit together, that our marriage had endured every challenge. I had no idea it would unravel within 3 months. One Tuesday, I came home early. Christina was sitting in the living room, hands folded. She told me we needed to talk. I sat across from her, convinced something was wrong with Amber. Instead, Christina told me she wasn't happy, that she hadn't been for a long time, that she had lost herself. And then she said the words that changed everything. I deserve to be happy, even if it means hurting you. I want a divorce. My mind searched desperately for logic, but nothing fit. She said nothing had changed, and that was a problem. She didn't know who she was outside being a wife, mother, and teacher. I begged to fix whatever was broken. She said I'd done nothing wrong, that I was a good man, a good father, a good provider. This wasn't about me. I asked for counseling. She refused. There's a special cruelty in being told you did nothing wrong while someone walks away. If there had been an affair I could confront or a mistake I could correct, I would have fought, but she gave me nothing to fight against. She framed the destruction of our marriage as self-discovery. The nights that followed were unbearable. She moved into the guest room. I lay awake replaying our entire history, searching for missed signs. I barely slept, barely ate. I still loved her. I wanted to save us. A week later, I called Amber. I hoped she could reason with her mother. Instead, Amber told me she already knew Christina was unhappy. They had talked about it. No one warned me. Then she said I should let her go if that's what she needed. Christina moved out a month later. The divorce was legally straightforward and emotionally devastating. Ohio law meant an even split. I didn't fight for anything. I just wanted my wife back. Months later, a friend told me Christina had been seen with a younger man. I investigated. The truth surfaced quickly. He was a personal trainer, nearly 20 years younger. The affair had begun before the divorce. I never confronted her. It wouldn't have changed anything. 3 years later, Christina called. We met. She told me she'd made a mistake. The freedom she wanted had turned into loneliness. Her lover had left. Dating had been brutal. She asked if we could try again. I told her no. She had chosen happiness at my expense. I chose mine without her. I forgave her for myself. But forgiveness doesn't mean reopening the door. Some chapters must end. And finally, mine has. Whatever comes next, I'm ready. Thank you for listening.